Hey, you guys, it is Sarah Troske with the very first episode of The Power Zone.
Yay.
Yay!
Very exciting.
We're so excited. So, this Power Zone idea came from my friend James Stevenson right here, and so that's why he is on the very first episode here. So, we're going to tell you all about the Power Zone, what it is, and so first of all,
Okay.
tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, sure. So I'm a software developer manager now. I've been in that industry for quite a while, since I suppose it's been 20 years or so. We've met probably 3 years ago.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
At a gym, right? So my story to get there was really, maybe wrapped up in my career, wrapped up in life, of trying to get everything balanced. You get everything professional. Your career is going along really well. Was really focused on that, but didn't have as much time for keeping myself physically strong as I wanted to. And every time I tried to get more, maybe more diet, more running, those kinds of things, life always seemed to get in the way. I've got 2 kids. First one just turned 13 last week. Yeah. So there was always something that was very busy. And so I was very much trying hard, trying to have goals, trying to make progress. And actually during one of these stints of yes, I'm going to really do it this time, I was out mountain biking, trying to do some stuff in Mount St. Helens, and trying to carry some camera gear, and twisted my back, and it's no, I'll push through it, and went home. I'm no, I'm going to play some sword fighting with the kids, and hurt my back some more and push through it. And then I'm no, I'll do some home repairs and get really on stuff, and I push through that. And after about 3 months of just constantly destroying my back, trying to push through things, ended up in physical therapy for 9 months. And I was walking like an old man, couldn't really do anything. Kind of was starting to think that maybe this whole goals and physical fitness thing was just physically not possible for me. I was going to be walking like an old man for the rest of my life, even though I was 35. So my wife said no. My brother was big into bodybuilding. They're no, this is recoverable. As crazy as it feels, as many times as you've tried and failed, and 10 years of trying to get stronger and then hurting yourself and trying to get stronger. It is possible to get better. So I went in and I started working with Ray, and really the next 6 months, 9 months, a lot of recovery. Mm-hmm. That was after 9 months of physical therapy. And I think we met probably around that time, right?
Yeah. So you were doing deadlifts in the hex bar still.
Probably, yes.
So
yeah, I hadn't. The doctors were you'll never deadlift, and I was extremely terrified of doing anything that could hurt my back. Yeah.
So you were still doing the deadlifts in the hex bar, and I thought was going super heavy. You still had the 3 plates or whatever.
Yeah, I was probably 350 or 400 or something like that. I was really stoked.
So it's just been super inspiring and amazing to see your growth and progress over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, because so after those 9 months, right, there's still a whole lot of space to go. And I think that's what made you start asking me about what are goals now and how are things going. And you said something about how people need to get out of their comfort zone. And I kind of retorted back. It's almost grumpy. I was well, I'm not trying to get out of the comfort zone. I'm trying to get into this power zone. And I was really passionate, right?
And when he said
which is you don't want to do to your trainer. You're no, you're wrong. I don't need to get out of my comfort zone.
And I'm tell me about this power zone.
Yes.
Tell us all about this power zone. So what does it mean to you?
I think after that many years of trying to get out of my comfort zone, trying to have goals, trying to make progress, doing those things, keeping food logs and all of that, and being discouraged time after time after time again, just getting uncomfortable, pushing through things, having more willpower, literally wasn't working, and literally led to me getting hurt in some ways, right? Yeah. And so I a part of the recovery was needing to look past just do things harder, do things more, be better, push yourself harder, beat yourself up more, into what is the place you want to be, and realizing that that's not the goal of what you're trying to get to. That's not the thing you're going to be in 3 months. That's the state of becoming what you're going to be in 3 months. And so that power zone is that feeling of I am in the middle of it. I'm not where I was, and I'm not where I'm going to be. I'm stuck in the middle of it. But that is really powerful. That's a fun spot to be if you can get used to that growth. And so I think we compared it to being in the middle of a really heavy lift. There's a certain point when you're lifting the weight and you can't You can't just stop and be like, hey, I'm uncomfortable now. Yay, I'm uncomfortable, and stay there.
Right.
You can't just hold the weights with bad form and get excited. You just focus. There's only the lift, and you complete that lift. It's like that. But this is, your journey over the next 3 months, 6 months, or a year to get to the point where you're more powerful than you were before. And then you reset again and you say, where am I going to be in 6 months? Right. That drive to be better is part of what I felt is this power zone. And you're smiling.
I love it. I just love it. Like that drive to becoming better. Like we are on this transformational journey, which is a pathway to becoming a better version of ourselves always. Right? We're not just going to get to this like magical better version of ourselves and then like we're done like
well, there's a lot of people that kind of make it look like that, though, right? It's like 6 months or 6 weeks. I went from 300 pounds to 200 pounds. Everything's better, and ta-da! And then you see anything, and yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. I don't know that we get to track people over the course of the decades of not only being good. You're starting your personal trainer journey. I'm excited to see where you'll be in a year, 5 years.
Oh, I know, me too.
10 years, right? that long growth.
Yeah.
That's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I think you were much more maybe a goal oriented person by nature than me.
I wasn't always though.
Okay.
Which is the thing. So, and I actually did a post about this today because I posted something about SMART goals. Have you heard of that term,
yeah.
SMART goals?
We have to use them at work in our performance reviews. You're like, yes.
And so before, and this was like maybe more than 5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. I would think of goals as, like no big deal, like what's the point? And so now, like, especially being with the real estate team that I was with, Pickett Street, for 5 years, I grew tremendously, and it was all goal-oriented.
Okay.
And
what got you over that initial uncomfortableness, though? Were you like, I don't like goals?
First of all, I had a great leader that held me accountable and steered me in the right direction of finding these goals that were big enough, challenging enough, that we could break down into little mini tasks that seemed manageable.
Okay, so you needed like something big and you needed something small.
Right, yeah. Okay. So when you, like for weight loss, for example, when somebody wants to lose 50 or more pounds, that can seem super intimidating. That's not going to happen all in one day, 1 week, not even 1 month, healthily, because they didn't, gain all of that weight in 1 day, 1 week, or even 1 month, most likely, right? So you have to break it down. What are the little daily tasks that you can focus on that are going to build and turn into something big with consistency over time? We talked about consistency.
Yeah. So what sabotages... So we've got this idea, this power zone is where you're going to become something, right? What sabotages your power zone? Right?
What is this an interview about me?
I mean, both of us, right?
What sabotages my power zone is any kind of fear, excuse, limiting belief, stuff like that, for sure. Like, self-doubt, when that, creeps in. I just had a week of my competition prep where I didn't lose any weight.
You're like 4 weeks out now, right?
5 weeks.
5 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Really close.
And so that I could be super freaking out about that, and I'm not really, which is great because I could look at it 2 ways. Like, I'm either going to stress myself out, which isn't going to help anymore, or I can just be grateful for where I am right now. Hey, at least I didn't gain any weight. Knowing that I need to just trust the process and be present. I can only control what I'm doing right now, not what happened, not really what's going to happen tomorrow, but like right now.
Okay, so using this lift metaphor, like we're saying this power zone is like being in the middle of lift.
Right.
You're in the middle of lifting it, and if you're thinking, man, that last lift didn't go well, I don't know if this one's going to go well, and you're really focused on the last lift, or, this might not go well, but hopefully the next one will. Maybe tomorrow I can lift it really well. If you're focused on either before or after too much, you'll miss that lift. It'll be, so you have to be kind of in the moment and focused.
Yeah, it's like when you're doing like the muscle mind connection, mm-hmm. like when you're feeling your muscles work and do the proper lift instead of just going with like the motions.
Yeah. So I mean, I know for me, one of the things that gets in that way of that power zone. My work and job and family requires a lot of decision making constantly. So I manage a team. We do artificial intelligence software, running on just a massive amount of data. And so I'm working with my team of people. I've got other teams that I'm working with, sometimes, internationally. And so I get done with work. I'm tired. I drive Seattle traffic home. And there's this kind of decision fatigue of how do I not even have the motivation, but just all those little choices of things. You can do meal prep and you can do all this kind of stuff beforehand, but the fatigue of making those decisions gets in the way of me even feeling that power. I just feel exhausted and fatigued.
And I think you just have to remember why. Remember why you're doing what you're doing or what you want to do. Because sure, there's lots of days we don't want to go to the gym, we're tired or whatnot, but we do it anyways, and then we feel good, right? As opposed to
usually it's the ones where you don't feel good. It's the constancy that makes it work, right? Not the days that just make it feel kind of good. And so, because some days are better than others, and some are really hard.
We have strong days,
and we have some really bad days. Yeah,
weak days where it's like, oh my gosh, I feel so weak. And I mean, at what point do you have to listen to your body and take a rest, too?
True. Yeah. Right. I mean, that was maybe the hard part for me early on. Was either I'm all in all the time, all intense, when I wasn't ready for it, right? That'll sabotage me. And then if I'm really hurt, I can't go and do anything, and that's discouraging. So this cycles of extremes was helping me, right?
Right.
But I think, so you mentioned these small things and breaking it up. Trusting the process, though, that was really important. So going in after physical therapy and going and seeing Ray, there was a degree of which I had to take a little bit of control off of things. I wanted to know everything, and I would I always ask questions for everyone.
That's your engineer analytical brain.
Sure. But I think I could still use that. But I had to make sure it didn't sabotage things. Like soak in all the information, but always still do the lift. Always still do the things that are there. Focus more on being in the moment. Because if you're thinking of all this decision fatigue, right, where your brain gets tired and can't make... If you're thinking about all the whys before and all the whys after, that's less time to focus on the whys now, right? So trusting the process. Having a trainer was useful for that. Looking at what was coming ahead and saying, I am moving forward. The whys of where I got to here are sometimes not important. I'm just moving forward, right?
Right.
Okay, so I guess that's kind of where the story of why I was trying to achieve this power zone feeling rather than just get out of your comfort zone or have more goals. 'Cause I felt I'd tried those things and failed in a way that I want to capture that when things are working right, there's a level of tenacity, right? And the tenacity lasts months and weeks. It lasts years, and you keep going.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me strong. That's what keeps me healthy, is knowing there's the constancy to things.
Do you have a fear of failure?
I don't think in the normal sense. Because I'm trying to think of anything that I'm afraid of. I think I'm more afraid that what I'm doing would actually be wrong, detrimental. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because I've had so many experiences where I've tried to do the right thing and made things worse. The feel of failure isn't like the feel of other people judging me. It's the fear that I might do something that's actually wrong, right? Maybe that's why I asked so many questions.
Okay. Well, right. You're trying to prevent failure.
Prevent the kind of failure that moves me backwards too far, right? There's a kind of failure that's recoverable. That's, And
what do you do when you fail? How do you react?
It's a good question.
How do you overcome it?
It's a good question. I don't actually know. I think not dwelling on it is a big piece of it. Understanding why you're there, being 10% focused on the failure, 90% focused on the next lift that you're in, right? What am I doing right now? Not just where I'm going to get to, but what am I doing right now in the next week, in the next month, in the next 6 months that is going to be consistent in a way that maybe I wasn't in the past. So reserving more mental energy for now rather than more of it for just the failure, because that's already passed. You can't go back and change that.
Right, and you can only learn from it. And
sometimes not even. I think that's the hardest part. Sometimes you don't always know. You wish you could analyze it, and you can overanalyze it. I mean, I'm probably easily guilty of that, right? Just overanalyzing the failure, why and why and why. I can keep digging forever, but sometimes it's as simple as you didn't know. You tried. Maybe you learned something from it, and maybe you just need to go back and try something a slightly different way. But it isn't always focus on just the learning, because sometimes mistakes happen, right? I don't know. Have you hurt yourself training at all yet? I think most athletes, after a while...
Hurt myself? No. I pay pretty good attention to, like, how my body's feeling. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, like, if my back is feeling so sore or whatnot, and, like, it's leg day, and my program calls for, like, squatting, like, I don't want to be having a barbell on my back, most likely, so I'll just switch it up, and I'll do, like, a leg press that's a little bit more safe and stable.
So even though you have these SMART goals, right? You might have a SMART goal to do a whole bunch of squats, but you're kind of comfortable switching things up when you know it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't have a problem switching things up for sure.
Yeah. So do you think people get too attached to their goals too literally and then miss the bigger picture?
No.
Okay.
Because I would say most people don't have goals and
to begin
have
That's fair.
Have a fear of even taking action towards something that they really want, because they let some kind of fear or excuse hold them back.
Okay. So have you known a lot of people that have been stuck back by fear?
Yeah. A lot of people. So it's like, how do we get them out of that?
Okay. Do you think it only applies to fitness, or like other life goals too?
No,
mostly.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, all across the board.
Where do you think we get the fears?
I think the fears come from our experiences of, being raised, the world. Like, it's a learned thing, fear. Because when we're born, we have no idea what fear is, what it's about. Like, it's learned. Fear
I've seen my kids. I mean, they'll just do really crazy things sometimes,
right?
Until they learn that that's a really bad idea.
Yeah. And then now that's a fear. And so, and there's people, they have, hard upbringings and stuff, and we need to find a way to get past those issues.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's all about mindset. Mindset is everything. Everything is a choice when it comes down to it, right? We choose to let those fears hold on to us, or we choose to let them go. Okay.
So I know when I was in my hard spot, right? I was more than just afraid that I wouldn't recover. I knew I was getting to the point where I was almost going to become my reality. It wasn't going to be a fear anymore. It was just going to be the headspace that I lived in, the mindset that I lived in, that I am just broken. I've tried things for years. The harder I try, the more I get hurt. My mindset was almost to the point where I wasn't afraid of success. I wasn't afraid of failure. I just accepted that I was broken, right? And that's the worst spot to be in, because there's no even conception that you're being held back anymore. You're just resigned. You're not happy there, but you're just like, okay, this is just status quo.
That's like your lowest point.
So I think having people around you that recognize you can have growth more than you anticipate, and have them, and paying attention to them and listening to them, because we have a lot of voices that will tell us that you can't succeed. There's a lot of reasons why you won't be the best at something. You may not succeed at you may not get first place at a bodybuilding thing. Who knows what can happen? Lots of things are out of your control. So there's so many voices that can give you reasons why maybe the status quo won't get any better. Having the voices around you saying, no, actually, I've seen somebody go through this before. I've coached somebody who's been through this before. I had a friend who's before. We can get through this together. I think bringing a sense of that you're not alone in this. Other people can help you. Can help people get out of that fear-based zone. But they have to see it, and other people have to believe in them too.
Right. And I think some people need those cheerleaders or that support system.
I think we all do.
Right.
I actually think we all, to some degree.
Yeah.
Because you're learning a lot to get to where you're at with bodybuilding, right? If you were trying to reinvent that sport from the beginning, it would be tough. It would be really tough. So even the coaching that you get is all cheerleading of some form, telling you what you can do, that if you stick to the program, it'll make it. I think a lot of people that struggle with that don't even know that they have cheerleaders. They might have a lot of them, but they may not see them.
That's interesting. Yeah.
At least I knew I did. I didn't know there was as many people cheering me on as there actually were.
And then how did you find that out, that these people were cheering you on?
And I think part of it was actually just expressing what I was concerned about. Where am I at? I think I was very open when I started working with Ray about, I'm concerned that I may never walk like a normal human being again. And I think I found out probably a year later that after they saw me for the first time, they were kind of worried that I wouldn't either. Okay. Being able to be open about that and say, this is where I'm feeling on my journey. I wish I was in a better spot. I literally don't know if getting to a better spot is even possible. I shared that with my family. I shared that with friends. I didn't just try to accept it. I was like, this is how things are, but I may not be entirely happy with it. Not for pity, but just kind of reaching out to people. And I think through somehow that process, I was able to pick a few people who were actually able to reach out back. In this case, Ray was one, Andrew was one. Really, there was a number of people that kind of helped along that. You as well, right? Yeah.
That's like so awesome. And like you too, like, were my cheerleader. Like I would come in every Saturday and you would just be finishing up with your workout.
Well, you were tenacious.
Every week you're looking good, you're looking better. And like, I needed that like so much, because last year that prep got really, really rough for me. So I just appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you.
We are each other's cheerleaders. So.
And I mean, I hope the people who wind up listening to that, if there's people who feel like they don't have cheerleaders, right, that they get a sense that there might be other people out there, right?
They have someone. And what's so cool too, and which is why I'm doing this, is you never know who you're going to be able to reach and impact or influence or inspire in some way, big or small.
Yeah.
And so this is something that's out of my comfort zone, but
are you not used to doing these?
I'm in my power zone now, and I'm just putting myself out there, because why not?
Sure, right?
So, and what most people would be like, oh no, I don't know how to do it, I'm too scared, I don't know what to say, and blah blah blah. The list goes on with excuses and fears, and I'm just like, screw all of that. Like,
well, you don't have time for that at a certain point. It's not going to help, right?
Right. This is not going to get edited. It doesn't matter. This could be like live for all we know, but like, yeah.
You're going to be president one day, and somebody's going to pull up this video.
No. I'm not like political at all, but president, no, of my own company maybe or something.
There you go. Right. Okay, so I think we talked a bit about where you feel, where I felt this power zone, like why just getting out of the comfort zone wasn't enough, right? And so the mindset of knowing that you have cheerleaders, knowing that you're looking forward, not in a passive way though, like you're actively engaged in your process of transforming yourself, and you have people around you. There's occasional moments, right, when you can look around and you're lifting something and somebody else is lifting something, you look at each other and you're like, yes, we're doing this together. So being able to pull those people in, I'll talk with a future version of myself. I don't know if you've ever done it. It sounds kind of crazy, right? But look at yourself a year from now or 5 years from now and have a conversation with that person on who they've become, and have them give you some advice back. Like, I got there. What happened? Was this really worth the trade-off? I know you had to give up these kinds of things. Was that worth it? And have them answer you back.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I don't know.
It sounds a little bit crazy, but it kind of works.
So how often do you do something like that?
I think the moment when like you mentioned SMART goals, right? When I don't know where to set that next moment, where is that next progression that I'm going for? Think forward to that person that you might be in 6 months, and ask them like what they're thinking. What were they happy with? What are they kind of unhappy with? Why? If they could do those last 6 months differently, what would they do? And then you kind of reshape your image of what you might be in 6 months, and ask that new person something. So it's like if you take the active visualization thing, which can sabotage some people, right? Because they say, I'm going to look like a bodybuilder in 6 months. then they feel psychologically like they already are a bodybuilder, and so they don't need to work. I think there's a psychological phenomenon where you can...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can backfire.
I haven't heard about the backfire of visualization, because that's something that I use every now and again too. Like
I think some people can use it to they look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, I'm not that bad. I'm almost like a bodybuilder. I can see myself being a bodybuilder. I kind of am a bodybuilder. I've already made it. And then not knowing how to translate that as a future version of yourself into action.
Okay.
Yeah, it's... I forget where I was reading about, but that is a real thing that some people can sabotage themselves, right? So I'll have more of a conversation with my future self instead of just visualizing them and say, how did you go? Like, how did you get there? What do you wish you would have done? And then if I'm not quite satisfied with how that person turns out, maybe come up with a new version of that person and talk to them instead.
We're ever changing.
Yes,
right?
but you're aware of that change and you're kind of involved with yourself over that time period. Yeah.
What do you think about people who just are fine with staying the same and where they're at?
I think a lot of people may be fine in one area, but usually there's something in the back of their head that's ticking. What is the aspect of their life that they know is changing? Or are they looking backward at some point in their life when things were really good and trying to get back to that, right? Most people I think talk to have some aspect that they're really happy with, and they may not care about fitness, or they may not care about some aspect, but there's something that they're interested in. I think the hardest part is saying if they're not interested in the thing that they really need, like if they really need to be more fit, but they're just not interested in it. I think you're wondering, like, how do you transform that? And how do you get them interested in it again? Is that kind of where you're going?
It was more of just like a general question, but yes, kind of. Like, how do we get them interested or influenced or inspired to change? It has to come somewhere within, right? You can't change somebody who doesn't want to change.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, people would resist that, a lot of people, right? If you're trying to cheerlead somebody who doesn't want it, that's
right. You
become kind of the annoying friend. Either you help or it backfires, and it's hard to know which one it's going to do depending on the person, right?
Yeah. It comes from self-awareness, maybe?
It could come from self-awareness, right? Maybe sometimes just listening to people. And I think there's enough people out there who do want help changing that sometimes you don't have to change everyone. Right, that is ultimately on them. Right, there are people out there who are saying, "There's this aspect, and maybe I want to coach. Maybe I want some help in there." And you find the people who want that, because there's enough of them out there. And then as you help more people, I think more people see that, and then they think they can kind of come for you.
And that's kind of what I hope to do too. Is I'm sharing my journey, and it's touching and impacting people, and maybe they don't realize that they want to make a change yet, but I'm still sharing my journey, and then finally a year from now, gosh, Sarah's been sharing her journey for all this time. Okay, I'm ready to get going.
Well, I mean,
and so I've had people who've reached out to me.
I think there's probably a lot of people that realize that it's hard, right? Doing what you did takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. You don't get there. You don't get there easily, but it doesn't mean everyone has to make as much of a transformation as you do.
Right.
And so maybe I think some people who might be struggling to feel motivated to get better, you don't have to be a bodybuilder or a powerlifter.
No, I don't expect anybody that I help to
you
want
can
to
be what
become a bodybuilder.
But the time will pass either way, right? You can end up, and it's maybe just having hope that some aspects can turn out better than you expect. In fact, better than you maybe even dreamed that could happen to you. And so I think starting with that and saying it doesn't have to be perfection in some ways, but it can be. All of us can still progress, right? And you wonder what happens when we get older. We get to be 60, or we get to be 70, we get to be 80, right? When you're thinking, I possibly will never ever be as strong as I was. There's still growth that can be there, right? I think it's important that we find that power zone when we're in our 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, and that power zone might look like hey, I'm reaching out and having lots of friends around me. I'm staying really active, engaged, and doing things where some of my friends are maybe not, right? So that power zone concept, I think, should apply throughout all of our life about wherever you're at. Understand and really, really internalize that there's progress. So there's something that can be better, that you can end up differently in a year than you hoped to, right?
Yes.
And be seeking that version of yourself rather than the version that ends up maybe not where you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it all comes down to, like, are we happy where we are right now?
And there's always something can be there. I think it's the fear, right? Especially as you get older too, that things, I've known friends that get older and they know that things are deteriorating. They know that they're not what they used to be.
Right.
But then they make a change and then they're surprised. Like, I didn't think that I could run like that again. I didn't think that I could do that again. And understanding that there's more things that are possible, maybe not giving up hope on yourself quite so easily.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's people in their 40s and 50s that are in the best shape of their life.
Yeah.
And
I hope to be better at 40 than I was at 30,
and
right?
that's inspiring, yeah.
Yeah. I also have friends who are battling cancer and those kinds of things. And so I think when we have messages of like, oh, just have more goals and just have more focus, there's a lot of people who are sitting there. Hopefully people maybe are listening to this and they're like, I've got cancer. How do I get the power zone, Sarah? I'm in chemo. Knowing that you can make it through, that you can be a survivor, right? You actually can make it through that, and you have people that are there rooting for you.
And it takes a lot of mental strength for a cancer survivor. I've known a few, and so, I mean, just their stories are just remarkable, and the mindset that they had to put themselves in to push through.
Yeah, and I think people can push themselves through more than they know, and sometimes just knowing that you have friends that are there. So if anyone is listening to that and is having a really rough time with something, knowing that there's people here actually believe that you'll get, you can find that kind of power zone, you can find that kind of confidence, and you have people around you that are cheerleading. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's all within.
Yes. Well, and together.
Right?
And together.
And it's just, it's the place to be.
Yes.
Right?
So is there anything else you wanted to cover? I know we probably got about 20 minutes in or so.
No, that was like great stuff. Like, I could just like listen to this like over and over and over again. So if any of you guys have any like revelations or thoughts on the power zone, maybe you're in your own power zone, you have your own definition of it, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, or you had a good question about how do you motivate and inspire people. I think that's, once you get into a part of your life that's feeling successful, you're feeling strong, and you want to share that, how do you do that effectively with other people and bring them along on your journey?
It's just sharing, by telling people, because once you tell somebody a goal too, that makes it more real. And that is level of accountability, right?
Yeah.
So it's some power stuff.
So if there's anyone listening who has comments, share, wherever you're at, if you're looking for inspiration, Sarah's checking things and responding to things pretty well. So
I'm on it.
You're on it. So okay, well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, James, for being on the very first episode, getting us kick-started into the Power Zone Vodcast.
And I heard you already have somebody else lined up.
I have somebody else,
Awesome.
a couple other people lined
That's
up,
good.
and so stay tuned, you guys, and thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.